Okay, let's dive right in. When you think of humility, especially in a Christian context, you probably picture quiet submission, right? But what if that's not the whole story? Today, we're going to dig into a really fascinating perspective based on one speaker's analysis that looks at key moments and asks a provocative question. Was Jesus' humility actually a form of incredible strength?
All right, so first things first, let's kind of set the stage. We've all got this picture in our heads of what Christian humility is supposed to look like, an image that's been taught for a long, long time. For so many people, this one line, it's everything. This is the teaching that defines the whole concept. It's a call for what seems like passive acceptance in the face of an attack, a virtue, and just quietly enduring.
And here's where it gets interesting. Is that really the complete picture? The argument we're looking at today says, hang on a second. If we only focus on that, we might be missing a whole other dimension to this, something far more powerful.
So the whole idea is this. If you really dig into the scriptures, you find these specific moments that just don't seem to fit that passive mold at all. So let's break down the three big examples that the speaker points to.
Okay, case number one. This one takes us to a super high-stakes moment, the arrest in the Garden of Gethsemane.
So just try to picture this, right? It's dark out. A whole battalion of soldiers, fully armed, shows up to arrest one guy. I mean, the power imbalance looks absolutely massive. And when they ask for Jesus, he just steps forward and says, "Yep, that's me."
And then something absolutely wild happens. The second he says, "I am he," the Bible says the entire group of trained soldiers, they just collapse. They fall right to the ground. Think about that. They're made totally powerless, and not because he lifted a finger. It was just his words.
So according to this analysis, this is the furthest thing from being passive. It's the complete opposite, right? It's a massive show of authority. He makes it crystal clear that he could have easily defeated them, but he doesn't. Instead, he immediately shows mercy and makes sure his friends are safe. It's power, shown, and then perfectly controlled.
All right, case number two kind of builds on this theme. We're shifting from a face-off with soldiers to a confrontation inside a holy place, the temple itself. So Jesus gets there, and what does he find? This place that's supposed to be for worship and healing, well, it's basically been turned into a loud, bustling marketplace. The sacred has been totally overtaken by commerce.
And his reaction? Well, it wasn't a quiet little prayer in the corner. No way. It was immediate, decisive, physical action. He literally makes a whip, starts driving people out, and flips over the tables of the money changers. It's only after he's cleared the place out that he brings it back to its real purpose by healing the sick.
And he was super clear about why he did it. This wasn't just losing his temper, it was a deliberate, powerful act to restore order. And that's the key point in this interpretation, right? It's about having the strength to defend what's right, not just quietly putting up with what's wrong.
Okay, for our last case, the focus shifts again. We're moving from physical strength to the sheer power of words, and specifically how Jesus dealt with powerful people. We're talking kings and even his own followers.
And this first example is, whoa. So King Herod basically summons Jesus, wanting him to perform some miracles, for his own entertainment. The response? A sharp, direct putdown. The speaker we're following paraphrases the sentiment as, "Tell that fox to shut up." In the actual text, Jesus calls Herod a fox, like a cunning, insignificant creature, and makes it clear he will not be distracted from his mission. It's a total shutdown of a king's authority.
And it wasn't just kings who got this treatment. When his own right-hand man, Peter, tries to steer him away from his destiny, the reply is just as sharp, maybe even more so. "Get behind me, Satan." He's not calling Peter Satan, of course, but he's identifying that idea, that suggestion, as a major temptation that needed to be shut down right then and there. So what's the big takeaway here? In these moments, you don't see any turning the other cheek. What you see is a direct, no-nonsense confrontation. He calls out what he sees as wrong, whether it's corruption or just bad advice, and it doesn't matter if it's coming from a king or his best friend.
All right, so let's put it all together. We've got these three cases. How do they start to build this totally different picture of humility? One that honestly looks a whole lot more like strength.
And this really breaks it down for us. With the armed soldiers, where you might expect submission, instead you get this massive display of power that's then held back with mercy. In the temple, instead of a silent prayer, you get decisive physical action. And with powerful people, instead of a polite no thanks, you get a sharp, direct shutdown. Every single time, the response is powerful and authoritative.
And this all leads to the central point of this whole analysis. True humility, from this perspective, isn't about being weak or lacking power. It's the opposite. It's about having incredible strength, but keeping it under perfect control, and only using it when it serves a higher purpose, whether that's showing mercy, cleaning house, or speaking truth to power.
So it leaves us with a pretty big question to chew on, doesn't it? If humility is actually strength under perfect control, what does that do to our normal ideas of power? It suggests that maybe, just maybe, true strength isn't about dominance or aggression, but about having the wisdom to know exactly when to act, when to speak, and when to show mercy. Definitely something to think about.